Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Like and subscribe.
Welcome to the Sit, Walk, Work podcast, a show about paying attention. My name is Dominic and I'm your host, and today is a guided meditation. And what you can expect is that the practice will open up with a brief recap, followed by the actual practice itself. If you find today's episode valuable, please share with your friends and family, and feel free to leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. The show will begin after the following chimes. Then the practice of meditation. And so the way that we kind of started off, we set an intention or offered the opportunity to set an intention. And we moved into the practice of allowing ourselves to just notice the breath. And the breath is a beautiful tool. We use it a lot in this class to kind of really just be in the practice. And the breath is enough to teach you everything you need to know. And we allowed the breath to feel it from the body. And I had you play with those little pockets of stillness that you find in the breath. Then we opened up to mindfulness of sound. So applying that same type of attention towards hearing and noticing the similarities and differences, and the way sound, much like your breath, just kind of has this natural flow. It kind of flows through you like your breath flows through you. But the stuff that sticks is kind of the stuff we reach out and grab. Like if we just observe it, like it'll eventually go away. But if we reach out and hold on to it in the form of thinking or in the form of owning it and making it ours, then it might linger a little longer. And then we moved from sounds into applying that same logic to thoughts. And the flow of the stream of thoughts is a little quicker, not as easy to see the stillness in that. Unless you've been practicing for a little bit, those moments might not be as clear or available to you. And so we practiced noticing kind of the flowing nature of our thoughts. And then I brought you back to the intention I asked you to consider at the beginning of practice, and reminded you that you're the observer that watches everything that happens, and that there's space and stillness in that observation, just like there is in thinking and focusing on your breath and focusing on the sounds. And that was the whole shebang. Got us through the whole process. And that was the whole shebang. Got us through the whole process. So, like I said, and as we begin, first things first, we start with our posture. Posture is an important part of practice. Helps aid you getting through the practice. So like I said, make yourself as comfortable as you can. I'll ask you to try to be as still as you can. Your body might disagree with that, especially if you don't practice often. And then sitting still for a half hour isn't part of your jam. But we'll use that as part of the practice if we need to. And you can make adjustments along the way as you see fit. From there, I'd ask you to take a nice breath in. Make sure that as you breathe in, you have the space, the capacity to take a good full breath, and then let the breath go. If you're holding on, gripping down, biting with the jaw, any tension in the face, soften that a little bit. And then I invite you to close your eyes. The eyes thing is a safety thing. So if you don't feel really comfortable closing your eyes, just set your gaze slightly out in front of you. But like I said, if it's comfortable, close the eyes. And those are some of the initial cues that kind of begin to set us on this journey of meditation, which is a journey I like to think of kind of noticing and paying attention to just what's happening internally. Like all of our attention is often externally focused. For this time you spend practicing today, we're going to flip that around a little bit. And we're going to take our attention inwards. And the first prompt I'll give you is something we practiced last week, with the new year being upon us. Everyone's looking at their intentions, what they want to do for the year, things like that. In meditation, we use that same idea. Yoga practice, we do too, that we set an intention for what we're going to do today in our work and our practice. And so I'll offer that to you for consideration for the next couple breaths. What brought you here? Or what would you like to receive from this practice? And when you feel like you've made a connection to your intention, I ask that we kind of release it. We put it down. We don't bind ourselves to this like a goal or a demand or any of the things we typically do when we're not practicing. We're not bringing that perspective in right now. The attitude I'll ask you to consider for just your practice is that you will be open and curious to what you learn as you observe. And very much like my shirt says, be a nice human, you'll give yourself that same grace and courtesy. One of the first things we notice when we close our eyes and we start to slow things down a little bit is just how much is going on. From the commentary of our mind to the changing nature of sound to our breath to the way our body feels. It can be a cacophony of elements taking place, moving and changing. And this becomes the raw ingredients for what we put together in practice. All of it becomes tools that we can use. And so the first place I'd like to direct you to focus or narrow your attention towards is the in and outflow of your breath. And as you kind of attempt to hold your attention here, I want you to feel the breath moving through you. You also notice where the breath comes in and where it goes out, whether you're breathing through your mouth or through your nose. But I also want you to feel the breath as it moves you and as it kind of shapes you from the inside out. If your mind slips away and is distracted from this bit of focusing I'm asking you to do, that's when we get to kind of apply the practice of kind of the attitude of how we show up in practice. You may default to wanting to feel frustrated or to maybe even playing a regular tape about your ability to do this or doubting that you're doing it correctly or any other similar story. But instead of that, just know that you have all the permission you need just to bring your attention back and start watching your breath again. The parts of practice that distract you also serve as the parts of practice that build your muscle of patience. Patience is built right alongside focus. As you observe the flow of breath, you see the qualities of breath begin to emerge. The rhythm, breath coming in, breath flowing out. There are parts of your breath at the peak or the top of your inhale, and also at the bottom of your exhale, even where there's these little moments of silence, stillness, if you will, that are just naturally embedded right into the natural breathing pattern. And so for the next couple cycles of breathing, if it feels safe and it feels okay, I invite you to pause either at the top or the bottom of your breath. Maybe you hold it there for a second or two, not enough to create discomfort, but just until you can feel what I'm describing. From a distance, these changing elements that you find in practice feel very, very solid. But it's only upon bringing the microscope of our attention on these things that we start to realize there's movement everywhere, that there's energy happening, that there's a transference taking place. And so I'd like to open our attention to another sense of ours. And I want you to bring to that the same attitude, curiosity, all the same elements that you've been watching your breath with. And I'd like for you to apply those to the ambient sound around you. The breath doesn't go anywhere, it just kind of drops back. Your attention drops to your ears, and you start to listen a little more intently. Obviously, one of the loudest sounds you'll hear is my voice as I kind of provide you with the prompt or cue. Beyond hearing my voice, what sounds are in your immediate room or space that you're in? And then what sounds are further out from there? And it's interesting, even if you don't have a lot of noise around you, even in sitting in the pure silence of the moment, there are still changing elements of sound that kind of, much like your breath rolls in and rolled out without any control from you, sounds move in and move out of your field of awareness. That you find the pockets of silence or stillness, even in the movement of sound. It can be interesting to note the way sounds land and how they make you feel, whether that's sitting in silence, repetitious noise, something that doesn't match what you think this moment needs to be, these are kind of thought patterns of themselves making an appearance in your practice in this moment. Notice what happens when you choose to not hold them, to instead let them go. Noticing where your mind is focused. Is it still with the sounds? Did it slip back to the breath? Did it get lost in some other distraction? To be mindful is to notice where your attention is from moment to moment, and then to guide it where you'd like it to be, or be okay with where it is. Allowing now the attention to begin to soften from the sounds, much like the breath. They begin to drop back into the landscape of your attention, bringing your focus now to observing your thoughts, your pattern of thinking, the thing that's kind of been overarching your practice today. Thoughts are a little different in the sense that you kind of sit back and wait for the next one of those, like you do for the sounds or for the next breath to come in. And you might notice that it might be one thought that simply shows up and then disappears and then shows up in a different way, or it might be a reoccurring thought pattern. But regardless of the type of thought, let yourself observe and notice what the thinking does to affect the rest of your practice. And thoughts are an interesting object to pay attention to because we tend to hold them very close to us. And under the microscope, you start to see that they aren't the hard and fast rules, that they follow the patterns you saw in your breath. They liberate themselves and dissolve on their own, even if they reoccur. But where they start to bring about our psychological suffering and discomfort is when we grab them, hold them, mold them to be true. And if you can, for the next few minutes of practice, let them go. As you've sat and observed and practiced, that your thoughts change, your the sounds around you change, the breath in you changes. And what is steady and what is consistent. And it's the part of yourself that is witnessing all of this, that's watching and is aware of all of these changes. That deeper part of yourself that you're connecting to here in this practice, that you're becoming mindful of. Over time, as your practice unfolds, you begin to find space within the thoughts. You begin to find space in just observing the changing nature that happens from moment to moment. And your mindfulness practice offers you the opportunity to begin to string those moments together until they become your new norm. In the last minute or so of your practice, I invite you to reconnect with your intention and notice how that did or did not show up in practice, or if something new or different unfolded for you. A breath in and a breath out. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes and conclude today's practice. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I invite you to check out my Substack, where we are building a community of like-minded individuals to discuss all topics related to the idea of paying attention. I hope to see you there. But until then, with metta may you be well.
That's the beauty